Jennifer Reynolds is editor-in-chief of Canadian Family Magazine, and she's joining us this morning to talk about some of the life lessons that kids can learn while watching the 2012 Summer Games from London. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
You write that through the eyes of an 8-year-old, there are fascinating things happening at these games.
There are. My son is 8, and it's been amazing to watch the Olympics with him. He just loves seeing the gymnastics, soaring out through the air, diving off the springboard. The catapulting is just fantastical. And then yesterday's race with Usain Bolt. I mean, that was just, he's a runner too. So it was like watching the coverage of the Olympic moms. He was moving, with them too, and it's just fascinating to see that and to see all the amazing activity that's going on. But there's so many lessons that we can teach them while we're watching the Olympics. They don't have to go to summer school. We can, teach as valuable things in our own home.
Well, yeah, and you've got them at an advantage too, because they're willing to learn at that point.
Oh, exactly. There's little sponges.
Yeah. All right, let's go through some of these life lessons then, Jennifer. You need to work together to get ahead.
That's right. And that was probably the first lesson that we learned at the beginning of the Olympics. We were watching the first lesson that we learned was that how many different countries there are. My son could not believe all these different countries. But looking at the women's cycling, we were watching the road race, and we saw the 4 women break out of the peloton. And then we were watching how they each took turns in the lead, and then eventually there were only 3 women, and seeing that there were 3 different women from 3 different teams who had to work together if each of them was going to win. And that was just fascinating. He couldn't believe that could happen. And, now why are they letting this person go in first, and why aren't they racing against each other? And then eventually, and we talked about that, how does that apply in our life, and how does that apply in our schoolwork, and, lots of different things, too. So that was fascinating. And if you haven't watched that with your kids, go back on YouTube and watch that one.
You mentioned the different countries in the world. I remember when my nephew was little, and I don't think he was any more than 10. And he was fascinated by the Chinese because he had never seen Oriental or Asian people before, I think is the current term.
Right.
And so I took him to a Chinese restaurant. And he learned an awful lot about all kinds of things that time.
Exactly. It's a perfect springboard.
Exactly,
Whenever we hear a new country that we haven't heard of, we look it up right away. Okay, where is this country? What do they eat? What do they do? And, you'll find lots of great other pictures of kids, which is an amazing way to relate to kids. And, finding out what they eat is a good way to relate to, we all eat rice in different countries, but what do we eat our rice with? And, what color is our rice and that sort of thing, too. So, it really is an amazing. So whenever there's a new country that your child hasn't heard of, look it up right away, and it can inspire amazing conversations. They'll never forget it, too.
Life lessons to learn from the Olympics. All right, respect your competition and keep your cool.
That's right. Well, when we were watching the soccer game and we heard about the Swiss soccer player who sent out a racist tweet, right after his match, it was that was pretty tough. That it was a big controversy, and he got kicked out. And so instead of changing the channel when that news was on, we talked about it. What does it mean? Why can't you lose your cool right away? Why is this a terrible thing to say? About an entire nation or about anybody, and we talked about stop now and plan. That's sort of our key thing when we're all heated up, and so we don't do something that we don't want to do. We just take a deep breath, and you can see that adults are doing this too, and what will we have done differently, and it's a good example to actually talk about, and talk about the badminton players too. Is this a cool thing to not try your hardest, and looking at all kinds of these amazing lessons that are out there, and seeing that these people who may have appeared at some point like superheroes are actually human as well.
It's true. Real-life superheroes really do exist.
Exactly. I think, we all have a huge affection for Usain Bolt and Michael Phelps going into the Olympics, and, both of them to do what they have done so far. It's just amazing. And you know what? They're both, great men who have done they set great examples, and it's a great way to get your kids excited about the Olympics.
Absolutely.
If they're not excited about judo, they'll definitely be excited about the 100-meter dash. And wow, those men are capable of anything they put their mind to, and I think that's the lesson that we draw out of it. You put your mind to this, you try really hard, and you can do whatever you want.
And try new things.
That's right. That's right. Try new things, and don't give up. And that we were enamored when we were watching the 35-year-old father from Niger who had just learned how to row less than a year ago, and he lives in a country that doesn't really have any rivers or any rowing clubs, and he was trying new things. He was dedicated, and he didn't give up. How easy would it have been in the middle of that race with all these amazing rowers to just give up and say, I can't finish it? And, it was a hard race, but he just kept going on, and he had just the hearts of the crowd, and he had the hearts of my 8-year-old and I when we were watching.
That is so cool.
I know.
Another thing that I think needs mentioning is the fact, I think most Canadians are very, very proud of our athletes, whether they win, lose, or draw. If they medal, that is great. And if they don't medal, thanks for giving us your best. And it's okay to teach kids to have some national pride. You don't have to go overboard, but a little Canadian national pride doesn't hurt.
Exactly. Every time I find, with a bunch of the kids, and we'll have over the summer, we've had a whole bunch of the kids at our house when we're watching, and whenever there's a Canadian, whenever they say they were Canada, it's like, woo-hoo!
Yeah.
Lots of cheering, and we're all wearing our Canadian shirts, and, it's a great thing. It's a great national pride, and it is fun to have our heroes in some of the other countries too, but anyone who comes out Canadian is our favorite, for sure.
Jennifer, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Reynolds is editor-in-chief of Canadian Family magazine.